Yeah, old come out, new come in. All right, here we go. Are you ready? All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 1st, 2023 meeting of the Auburn School Committee. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Introductions down here to my right, please.
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
Ryan Belknap, Ward 4.
Clarissa Perez Armendariz, Ward 1.
Pam Hart, Ward 2.
Karen Matthew, Ward 3.
Connie Brown, Superintendent.
Pat Gaudier at large.
Pamela Albert at large.
Jason LeVick, Mayor.
Abigail Fauché, Student Representative.
Gabriel Despradel, Student Representative.
Mark Conrad, Business Manager.
Sue Doris, Assistant Superintendent.
All right, welcome, everyone. Let's begin with a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda, in addition, which includes the minutes from the January 18th, 2023 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. I have a second. Thank you, Clarissa. Comments? Any changes on that one? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion passes. Public participation. Do we have anyone here from the public who would like to come speak to the school committee this evening? Seeing no one, I'll close public participation. We have no presentation this evening. School committee student rep reports. Any this evening?
None this evening.
All right, thank you very much. Superintendent's report. Dr. Brown.
Thank you very much. I have a fairly lengthy report this evening, and I think it's all good news. So I'm going to start right at the top. I'd like to publicly thank our mayor, who facilitated getting a meeting with Governor Mills, and that really got things moving for us. We met with the governor along with her members of her staff, the Department of Education, DAFS, which is the Division of Administrative and Financial Services, and I think we have a good plan moving forward. So I met with the DAFS Associate Commissioner, Elaine Clark, and along with Mr. Conrad and representatives from the Department of Education, and we mapped out a tentative timeline to both address the charges related to pandemic, what they're called the pandemic escalation charges, as well as the PCB abatement and disposition. So we are going, I went to the State Board Subcommittee on Construction January 27th and met with their representatives regarding the two aforementioned issues that I just said, PCB abatement, as well as the pandemic-related escalation charges, and they were sympathetic and encouraging. I will go back to meet with them again on the 24th of February. They have another construction meeting, and we'll go and present our plan in a more formalized way. I'm hoping to have that draft timeline to you by your meeting for February 15 to give you a sense of what those dates and times are going to look like. The tentative plan is that we as a community would accept additional state money. We would need to go back to referendum in order to receive that. I'm working closely with Mark and members of the city to set those dates because, as I think you all know, they're driven by charter in terms of specific dates for posting and that process. So we will finalize that hopefully by the end of February. That process includes a public hearing. I've talked with Chairperson Matthew, and we're looking at that the last week of February. It will not be on a school committee night. And Pam, we're going to have to talk about, I think that impacts your fundraising committee. And because the timeline is so tight, we have to hit certain deadlines in order for these things to happen. So you may get preempted that evening by a public hearing. And we will advertise it. This would be additional money for the City of Auburn for this project in particular. There is not a state-local share. So you've heard often that there's an 88-12% cost share. The tentative agreement that we've secured with the DOE would be, it's entirely going to be a state cost, which is a huge step for us. It's a very good development. We will have that hearing probably 6 o'clock. I'll have to work with the chair on where that should be. It may be here, depending on capacity. We may need to have it at the high school, but that will be well advertised, and we will have that notice out to folks. The referendum will most likely be in June. So we will go back to the state board for official concept approval March 8th, and that's where they will vote on those additional funds. And then the referendum we're looking at is June 13th, 2023. That's the regular referendum date where we have the BVR, the budget validation referendum, as well as that referendum. And that's the process to date. Mark and I have a meeting tomorrow with representatives from the Maine Department of Education, DAFs, to outline if we need to do an addendum or an amendment to the existing contract with AC Dudley to see what we can do to help address some of the pandemic charges. So at the last session we had, they agreed that they put that draft language together, and we'll have a look at it tomorrow. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Brown on the steps that they have taken? Pat?
I just have one question. Can we continue constructing so that we're on a timeline to open as expected, or is this going to impact that?
I think that's a great question. This Friday, we will have another construction meeting, and Mark and I have talked about getting from the contractor a definitive timeline, and that we're not going to process any more requisitions until we know exactly when and what sections of the building will be turned over to us. So we're hoping that some of the most immediate things that need to be addressed, we can work on Friday. That's part of the language that we have to have changed in the existing contract. So that's underway, but we're still hopeful that we'll be able to move into the academic areas of the building July 1, and then the remainder, the gym, the auditorium, and some of the larger areas will be turned over to us by the opening of the school year.
Fabulous.
Mark, do you want to add anything to that?
Good. So some big changes in the last 2 weeks then, Dr. Brown, I would say.
Yes, that's right.
In a positive direction. So thank you for, again, for your leadership on this. And Mark, thank you also for your expertise in this as well. And Jason for orchestrating a meeting, getting us all the way through to the governor's office. So thank you very much for your work in all of this. Any other questions from any school committee members? Pat?
Just one question about, is there any option or allowance in the city charter to move up the referendum date?
I don't think so.
A lot of it has to, you can't really do that with a timeline because you have to print ballots and make them available for absentee. So that 60-day window would go right in the middle of DOE approvals, final votes, and so forth. So it would just be too tight.
Okay, good question though, Pam. All right, any other questions? Mark?
I was going to add that most of the cost is for the gymnasium. So actually within the current budget, we should be able to begin demolition of the rest of the building on schedule. So even if the referendum doesn't occur until the same time as the budget referendum, we should be okay.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Pam?
So the referendum is basically to ask if the city is willing to take more money from the state. And in taking this money from the state, it's not costing the city anything.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Don't try to understand it, because I still can't. I think I asked the governor and everybody that question like 4 times. I'm like, but, yeah. So you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you. Under my school committee chairperson's report, I just want to let you know that the waiver that we had a motion for a couple of weeks ago to waive 1 instructional day for Sherwood Heights Elementary School has been approved. So you all have a copy of that letter as well. All right, city council update. Mr. Mayor, city council update?
Yeah, actually, a couple of things. One really important thing here. Hold on 1 second. We're opening up a temporary warming shelter. I'm just trying to get the address and everything up here right now. Starting noon on Friday, it's going to be a 48-hour continuous warming shelter. I just want to make sure that we just made this announcement. A lot of work went into it. I've provided the information to Dr. Doris, but it will be at the Family Development Center at Valerie Circle, a couple blocks away from Washburn. All are welcome, especially families and children. And during the coldest, hopefully, the last coldest days of the winter, this is going to be open. So we're going to run it along with the YMCA, the Auburn Housing Authority, and Community Concepts, as well as the Immigrant Resource Center of Maine. So it's really a combo offering. So we're not going to turn anyone away, and it's 24/7. I just want to make sure people know.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Committee reports. Anyone need to report out from their standing committees? Agendas are here, minutes are here, some have met. Any questions, comments on any committees? All right, seeing none, let's move on to, there's no old business. We are on to new business this evening. Our policy committees have met. There's also a couple of new motions on here. So I'll start with a motion to eliminate the position of Principal RETC Director and to terminate the administrator's contract on June 30th, 2023, based on changes in local conditions pursuant to 20A MRS 13305. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. And I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, questions, comments? We have public comment on this? Any public comment on this? Sure, come on up, please. Hello.
Hi, everyone. Mike Davis, principal at Walton School, but this evening I'm wearing the hat as president of the Auburn Administrators Association. And I know you have a very difficult decision in front of you with the motion, as we all know, that impacts personnel. And as we are in the business of education and students, you know, that cuts deep when we do so. But I wanted just to take a really quick moment just to give a shout out and a thank you to Lila Mitchell for her service for here in Auburn, because if you so choose to eliminate that position, that does remove an administrator from our amazing administrative team, and that runs deep. So Lila, if you're watching this evening, thank you for your time at Park Avenue and also here in Auburn. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Would anyone else like to speak? All right, seeing none, let's take questions and comments from the school committee. Oh, Pam?
I guess I would just like a little more background about this and why this position's being eliminated.
The RETC transition report was voted on by the school committee in December. And as part of that report, we looked at personnel. We made 2 reductions. One was the director's position, and the second was an ed tech. And the secondary students are moving to the new school when the school opens in the fall, and the middle school students are moving to AMS.
Thank you for the refresher.
Yep, Pam?
Is there no place at all for Ms. Mitchell in our department?
It's a great question, and in the administrator's contract, the language regarding RIF reads that the person may be considered for a teaching position within the school department, and that has been offered to Mrs. Mitchell.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of eliminating the position? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Thank you. All right, next is can I entertain a motion for first reading of policy AUB-DLB, tax sheltered annuities. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pam. Questions, comments on that one? All right, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Next is a first reading of policy AUB-CHA, development of administrative procedures. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pam. Questions, comments on that one? Pam?
Yes, press the piton. I have a question. This part that's crossed out here that says the superintendent may take provisions for appropriate building principal and staff input in the development of administrative procedures, regulations, rules, and guidelines. I guess my question is, why was that eliminated? Personally, I think staff input is a good thing, so that's why I'm a little baffled at that.
UBCHA, going through the minutes.
It's the second paragraph.
So we have recommended revisions per MSMA policy, discussed and agreed to suggested revisions, include eliminating language covered in cross-referenced policies according to the cross-reference section. So it's cross-referenced someplace else. Yep. Okay, any other questions or comments? Thank you, Pam. All right, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Right, motion passes. Thank you. Next is the first reading of policy AUB-CHCAA, student handbooks. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pat. Questions, comments on that one? All right, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Next is the first reading of policy AUB-CHCAB, CHD, administration in the absence of policy. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Have a second?
Second.
Wow, go Clarissa over this way if that's okay. Questions, comments on that one? All right, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Upcoming meetings are listed on your agenda, although I think we may have one or two that overlap, but we'll update the agenda. Future agenda items, a request for information? All right, seeing none, I'll call for a motion to adjourn, please. Have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pat. All those in favor? And we are done, ladies and gentlemen. We are adjourned. Thank you.